Hello, I'm Dr. Jeff Gold, and I have the honor of serving as the president of the University of Nebraska system. I want to welcome you to the inaugural segment of Shaping the Future. In Shaping the Future, we're going to talk with faculty, staff, and students across the university who are having impact, who are truly making a difference. And today is one of those special days. Our guest today is Dr. Gina Ligon. Dr. Ligon is an organizational psychologist, and she's the director of the National Counterterrorism Innovation, Technology, and Education Center, better known as NCITE. NCITE is based out of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and it's our nation's leading academic center for studying emerging terrorism threats. She's also a counterterrorism expert. And that's one of the reasons that the Department of Homeland Security decided to create NCITE right here in Nebraska. We're excited to have Gina on Shaping the Future in this inaugural segment and to hear more about her groundbreaking work. So Gina, welcome. It's so great to have you with us. And as our audience may know, you and I have had an opportunity to work together back to 2017 and even before that, and it's super to have you as our inaugural guest on this segment. So before we talk about counterterrorism and your career, I'm very interested, and our audience is very interested in, how did you get started? You know, did you have a magic moment when you were growing up that you said, I'm going to study counterterrorism and I'm going to study organizational psychology? Was there a mentor or a friend, or how did it happen? Because you know, a lot of our audience are students and community members who are always not only interested in that, but frequently get inspired by those stories.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's interesting, you know, I'm from Oklahoma, as you know, Dr. Gold, and when I was in grad school, 9/11 happened, and I was already in a state that had been impacted by terrorism with Oklahoma City bombing. My mentor, my major professor, Mike Mumford, was a leading org psychologist, but also he had worked for the intelligence community before becoming a professor. So when 9/11 happened, he was one of the first calls from the intelligence community to say, can you help us understand the leadership of this group that just attacked us? And so I've been doing it ever since. Wow.
And how long have you been at UNO?
So I've been at UNO since 2012. I was fortunate to be moved here by choice. My husband is an Air Force pilot, retired here out of Omaha, and we are so happy to have our kids be from this area now.
So let's talk about counterterrorism now. And you know, the newspapers and the broadcast media are just full of headlines. I mean, a day doesn't go by that somebody isn't talking about either a threat or an act of terrorism somewhere around the world, and with all of the ongoing geopolitical conflicts, that tension continues to rise. And so why is NCITE so important, and how does NCITE serve in reducing that threat?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked, because just yesterday we were on a call with the White House about the current terrorism threat, and it is more diverse than we've seen it in the past 20 years that I've been doing this. You have threats coming from people coming across the border. You have threats that are homegrown. You have threats from people plotting in overseas nations trying to hurt us. And so what NCITE does is they provide this sort of apolitical analysis of these emerging threats that are coming. And we also have the luxury of being in a state that's incredibly patriotic. And so we have these wonderful students and faculty who work here that are just giving their all to be able to provide some data to the nation about what we can do to keep ourselves safe.
So of course it shouldn't be lost to anybody that the word education is deeply embedded in the NCITE title. And so it sounds like you're not only providing an incredibly important service to protect our freedom, but you're also educating the next generation.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the mission of UNO, specifically about educating the current and future workforce. So we have both professional development programs that we're doing for the Homeland Security Enterprise, where we're trying to train them and give them the state of the science of what's happening and what we know right from the labs that are on the University of Nebraska campus. But we also are trying to inspire majors from all across the University of Nebraska. We have some at the law school, we have some at UNO, who are using their degrees to be able to join into this terrorism fight. So it's incredibly meaningful for them to see how their degree can be directly applicable to helping to combat terrorism.
You know, what our audience may not appreciate is that this is not only critically important to the defense of our nation and to educating the next generation to protect our homeland security, but this is also very much a business, right? And I remember I was with you not too long ago when we were competing for this, and of course you were successful in that competition, but you know, where are we now financially? Because I understand we just received another major increase in funding.
Yeah, so when we won the award, it's really unique to have this kind of designation for a university. So there are only 10 centers of excellence from Department of Homeland Security for these different missions. So we're the only one focused on counterterrorism and terrorism prevention. There's others focused on hurricane communications and things like that, but we're the only one focused on terrorism. So when we won the award, we were guaranteed 10 years of funding for $3.65 million a year. So $36.5 million over 10 years.
That's not, just to say that again, that's $36.5 million.
Correct.
But the truth is that's not all, right?
Yeah, so once we won the award, they kept giving us more work, just as what happens in Nebraska.
And of course they pay for that work, right?
They do. So, and that work goes directly to students. So what we do is we use the majority of our budgets to be able to fund scholarships, graduate assistantships for these students to go to school based on this federal funding. And so we just hit the end of year 4, and we now have received $37 million from the federal government at the University of Nebraska, and the majority of it does go to our students to be able to help them to study and pay for work.
Yeah, so this is almost like work study for them, right? Because they're learning about cyber terrorism and how to prevent it and work with our federal partners. They're getting an education and working towards a degree. And are most of these undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, doctoral level degrees, some combination?
Yeah, we have, the majority of them are graduate students because that's what the federal grant allows us to pay for, these graduate assistantships. So you can recruit the very best students from all over the country, but also students that are also in Nebraska to be able to stay and get their master's or their graduate degrees in this space. And so their whole degree, just like mine was, is paid for by the federal government.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So without, of course, disclosing anything that would be top secret, is there an example of the kind of work that you do that our audience might be interested in?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the work we're doing for the University of Nebraska system. So as you know, cyber is an incredibly important domain for terrorists right now. They are using it to hold companies hostage for ransomware. They're using it to get personally identifiable information about critical figures and all kinds of just sort of nefarious work that they're doing for cyber. Yeah. And so we have a whole group of students looking at the domain of cyber as an attack vector for terrorists, both inside and outside the country. And so these students are incredible. They're getting cybersecurity degrees, but then their jobs are to be able to look at the university system and to see what kinds of attacks we're getting and to help us come up with ways to be able to combat them. So they're going to be readily employable once they graduate because they have had this real world experience, but they're also giving information to Department of Homeland Security about what kind of attack vectors we're seeing.
So if there are high school students out there or college students or people pursuing a different kind of degree and they wanted to learn more about NCITE, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, so we have a great website. It's unomaha.edu/NCITE. And we have high school internship programs. We have college internship programs. They're all paid by Department of Homeland Security, which is also important. And I would just encourage them to, do something meaningful with their education here. This is one of the very unique things that we can give our students at University of Nebraska.
Probably nowhere else in the country, right?
Yeah, where you can apply your degree, whatever it is, to help keep your community safe.
Well, on behalf of the university, but more so on behalf of the security of our nation, I just want to thank you for all that you've done. The trajectory that you've taken NCITE on, and the prominence and the recognition. You know, as our audience may or may not know, we recently had a ribbon cutting for your new facility in the Scott Technology campus in Omaha. And the national dignitaries that came in to be part of that ceremony and the conference that you held were absolutely amazing. So on behalf of everybody, I just want to extend our most sincere gratitude for keeping our nation safe.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be in Nebraska.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being with us on this very first segment. Look forward to seeing you next time.